Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Ken Feinberg. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Kimberly, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. And I just saw your latest film a few days ago, Love and Taxes, and can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, me too. It's a really exciting movie. I'm glad you came to see the screening.
Yes. So, just so people know who you are, I'm going to read a short bio. So, Ken Feinberg's journey in the world of acting and directing has been nothing short of remarkable. Starting from his passion for performing in plays during his school years, he honed his craft by majoring in film at University of Georgia with minors in drama and art. His talent led him to New York City and eventually to LA, where he delved into acting in films and theater. Transitioning his career, Ken returned home and established the Creative Studios of Atlanta, focusing on nurturing creativity and training aspiring actors, writers, and directors. His dedication to the craft led him to launch the CSA Film Academy, providing a platform for young talents to thrive and gain valuable training as well as experience. He also has a book coming out like this week. So
Yeah,
everything's happening all at once. So
isn't that
rather
crazy?
than read anymore, I would like for you to just, you know, tell us your story.
All right. Well, at the beginning, I was born and raised here in Atlanta. I'm an Atlanta native, which is kind of rare, and I always was attracted to acting. And I did a lot of theater in school when I was growing up. And went to college. I started out pre-med, and I was taking calculus, chemistry, and acting for non-majors because I just liked it. And then, like when I was a sophomore, I realized, why am I studying medicine? What I really love is film. So I switched to a film major and graduated from film. And I had a little video company here in Atlanta, and I was acting in theater at night, and I kept getting cast in the lead role. Of course, then I was young and I had muscles and hair down to my shoulders because I would play college football. And
Mhm.
then I said, well, let me see if I can make this happen. Let me see if I can realize my dream. And I went to New York and studied in New York, did an off Broadway show up there. And then I went to LA and studied and trained. I was in repertory theater. And that's when I started directing. I got kind of thrust into the directing position. That's kind of a funny story. I was in repertory theater and we're doing a show, and the director quit. And the cast came to me and said, Ken, we need you to direct. And I'm not a director. Well, no, they wouldn't take no for an answer. So I just started asking them questions like I would ask myself if I were acting in the role. How do you feel in this moment? What's your relationship with this person right now? I really just started like really prodding them and I knew as an actor that if I made the choice and the discovery on my own, that'd be much stronger than when the director tells me. Because when the director tells me, I always go, well, I saw it differently. Why do you want me to do it like that? So as a director, I started like leading them toward the choice I wanted them to make instead of telling them the choice I wanted them to make. So that kind of taught me how to direct. I felt like I had a natural talent toward that. And then when it came to like doing the lighting and stuff, I would turn to the lighting person and say, I want to create a sort of a feeling like this in the scene. Instead of going, I want you to hang a Lico here and put a Fresnel over there and put the orange gel in it. If I start directing like that, then that person is going to say, well, what do you need me for? If you know what you want to do. But I realized at a young age that if I enlist their creativity, we say, okay, can you help me create this feeling? And they can say, well, let's put the Lico over here, let's put the Fresnel there, let's put this gel in. Then they're part of the creative team, and that was just really an amazing feeling. And then um, fast forward a few years later, I'm directing my first short film here in Atlanta, and we've got this location that's the same cabin that they used for my cousin Vinny. You remember cousin Vinny that went to that log cabin? We're shooting at that same log cabin, and we have one day, and it's in the wintertime, so the days are short. And the PA driving the equipment truck got it stuck in a gully at the end of the driveway. So it was like 200 yards from the cabin. And the producer, she was a great producer. She put together this amazing crew. We were shooting on 16 millimeter film, so it was back in the early days. This is around 1999, and none of these people had met me. I hadn't met them, And I walked out to the street. Of course, they all knew who I was. I'm 6'4" with a shaved head. And I walk out, and I've been on sets where people start yelling and people get fired and things like that. I just walked out, assessed the situation. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing because it was my first movie I was directing, but my instinct was I just picked up some gear and started walking toward the cabin. And then those people, they just jumped and they picked up gear and started walking toward the cabin. And we lost a few hours moving equipment from the road to the cabin, but those crew people, they busted their hump to help me make that movie. And I think my demeanor on set, I guess you call it leadership, because I was working toward a solution instead of like trying to blame somebody. I said, hey, we're going to make a movie, we're going to solve this problem and move on. And then we had to go back and I had to change all my shot list. It's okay, instead of shooting the scene in six angles, we're just going to shoot it in one. And that must have been the beginning of where I got the idea to shoot a thing in one shot, because we would zoom in, we dolly in, dolly out, pan this way, go up. I was like, okay, we got the scene. We didn't have to put the camera here and put the camera here and put the camera here. So that was like a really, really important lesson. And then after that, I decided to go back to LA and do some more acting. And that's when I got on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Charmed and Star Trek Enterprise and a lot of shows. I played bikers and demons and convicts and aliens and bouncers because I'm 6'4" with shaved head and muscles. And I went to audition for Band of Brothers, and they go, "You're too tall to audition for this." I'm like, "What do you mean? Don't you have tall people in World War II?" "Yeah, but no one over 6 feet tall can audition." So I was kind of limited in what I could do. I was like, I could never be in a Tom Cruise movie because if I stand next to Tom Cruise, he comes up to my chest. So it's like, I had to come realize that I was a larger person than most people in the business, and that would work to my advantage. At sometimes, I wouldn't get many calls, but I would have the idea, well, when they call me, they need me. When I went into audition for Star Trek Enterprise as an alien captain, my coach was like, just go in and audition because nobody books their first audition. He's trying to help me relax, because Star Trek was like one of my dream jobs I wanted to have. And then I went in and I auditioned and I booked it. And I was like, really? Okay. So, I realized that, this handsome face, this beautiful body, it has its time and place. But after so many years of being the big mean guy, like I couldn't play the skinhead. The skinhead was just too mean for me to go. But on Buffy, I was like this comedic, romantic demon that was so much fun, the chaos demon. And, those kinds of roles were like a lot of fun for me. But after so many years of being the big guy, the big mean guy mostly, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back home to Atlanta. My coach was like, why are you leaving LA? You're booking, you're making money, you're ahead of the curve. Why would you walk away? I was like, it's just not satisfying creatively. I look at people that I was auditioning against, and that was their whole career. That's all they would do. I was like, I want to do more with my life creatively than just be some bouncer, on a TV show. So I came back to Atlanta, opened Creative Studios of Atlanta. And actually, before I opened Creative Studios of Atlanta, I trained for 2.5 years to be a relationship coach. So I've got a master's in teaching in relationships. And that only helps me with acting and with directing because I have a keener insight into how people think and how emotions work and that kind of thing. So when I started training actors, I had started training actors in LA before then, and I was mostly working with actors on how to market themselves because I had to learn how to market myself. I'm going back and forth now, but I started with marketing because I had to learn how to market myself because they had the heart of Puck, but no one's ever going to cast me as Puck at 6'4". So had the marketing, and then I got the teaching degree, 2.5 year program from the Global Relationship Centers, where I taught how to move people through their emotional skills, how to do that kind of thing. And then when I started teaching, it was like I was combining acting with relationship coaching because every scene in acting is about relationships. I wrote about that in the book. You change the relationship in the scene, use the same dialogue, you got a different scene. You take whatever scene you want and you're playing it with someone you're in love with, and then you change it, you play it with your dad, it's going to be different how it comes across. You play it with your ex is going to be different. You play with your kid, it's going to be different, even though you're saying the same words, how they come across. And that's fascinating. So I started training actors, and I was doing some casting and some producing. And then one of my casting associates said to me, "Hey, Ken, you ever thought about training kids?" And I said, "No." Because she goes, I think you'd be really, really good with kids. And I think she had a daughter she wanted me to train. So I thought about it, and I go, all right, well, if I'm going to train kids, number one, it can't be playtime. Number two, I don't want to be a babysitter. The kids have to audition, and they have to have a desire to learn how to be a professional actor, and their parents have to be supportive, and the main thing is we're going to make a movie, because they have to commit for at least 1 year. At the end of the year, we're going to make a movie, because acting to me is like learning to swim. I can tell you how to swim, I can show you how to swim, but until you get in the pool, you don't know if you can swim. So for an actor, until you get on set and the camera's there and the lights are there and the crew's there and they say action, go, you don't know whether you can do it or not. It's one thing to do it in class, another thing to do it on set. If you're doing a scene with, pick your favorite actor and say, I'm doing a scene with Brad Pitt, could you do it? Oh, it's Brad Pitt, hi, I don't know my lines, I'm looking at you. You can't be like that. So and then we had graduation, where the kids would put on tuxedos and gowns, and we get in the limousines and we drive to the theater, and we'd walk the red carpet, and I teach them how to walk the red carpet. And the parents and the friends, they would all act like paparazzi and take pictures and ask for photographs, and the kids would have a big time. We'd all go in the theater and watch their work. That would be their showcase. And so we did that for years. We had a lot of actors come through. Lexi Minetree, who's currently playing Elle Woods in the new Elle Woods Legally Blonde series, came through. She trained with me for a few years. She got her start with me. Storm Reid got her start with me. Storm was the lead in Disney's A Wrinkle in Time. She's been on Euphoria. She just won a Primetime Emmy last year. And there are so many kids that have come through. I got plenty of stories I'm happy to share with you. And then when COVID hit, everything sort of stopped, and I had to sort of figure out what I was going to do. I'm a single dad. I was putting a lot of time with my girls. And so last year I made this movie, Love and Taxes, with Lloyd Schwartz, who was the writer producer of the Brady Bunch. He's been a mentor for me. And he said, I got this script you can make on a low budget. There's only 2 characters in the whole movie, and it's basically a play, but to make it interesting as a movie, you have to shoot each of the scenes in one take. Because if you shoot it like a regular thing, it's not going to be that interesting. But if you shoot it in one take, then you've got something interesting. So we shot this movie in one take. Took us 3 days to shoot it in, and it came out lovely. And Lloyd is so funny. He's going to be in town for the screening on August the 2nd. But Lloyd was like, he wrote the script. This all takes place in one room. But the way I directed it, they leave the room, they go down the hall, there's another room, there's all this action happening, they come back down the hall, get this room, and Lloyd's like, what are you doing? It's like, he's just going down the hall, and he goes, I love it. Every time you go down the hall, something different happens, something magical happens, and it's like I was better than I could have done it. So it was very high praise from Lloyd. He loved the movie, and the supporting cast has been great, and the crew was amazing. And now we're at the time we're really enjoying it. My favorite time of making a movie is when I get to show up to an audience. Like we had the screening that you came to, and there were so many laughs, and that satisfies me creatively. That is more satisfying to me than choking somebody with a billy club in a prison as an actor, as a prison guard. That makes sense. So like being in the theater and this is a kind of movie that's really good with an audience. Like when you're in theater with an audience, because there's so many laughs, and there's so many. And the laughs come from different places in the audience. Sometimes the whole audience, sometimes a little laugh over here, down front, over here. It's like there's so many zingers that Lloyd wrote. I mean, Shelley's like, I feel like I'm in a Neil Simon play, because it's so witty. The banter is so well. You have to pay attention. It's not a blood and guts movie. It's not a superhero movie. It's not a lot of gore or violence. It's like a story. It's a romance. It's jokes. It's witty. It's sarcastic. You got to pay attention because there's things that are happening and the characters are developing over time. It's really, really wonderful. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with as many audiences as I can we've won several awards, probably 10 or 12 awards so far. We've won some Best Pictures. We've been honorable mention for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, multiple Best Actresses. We won awards for writing, for directing. We even got a finalist for production design, which is the set. Of course, it takes place in the 1970s. So the set is all 1970s. The wardrobe was all 1970s. The dialogue goes back to the 70s. And the actors are young. We had to teach them how to dial a rotary phone because they'd never seen one before. So yeah, I'm so glad you came to see it. And the other thing I've been doing is my students, my young students, the kids and teens I've been training since 2009. I invented acting terms for them to make it easy for them to act. They don't have to think because they can just be present to what's going on. And so I give them words like ET, which is an emotional transition. You know, you're feeling one thing, and then then somebody says something, and you start to feel something different, and that emotion starts to leave, another emotion comes in. And so my kids have been saying for years, you need to put this down in a book. You need to put all this stuff in a book because your method works. And the proof is that all these people have been booking roles, you know. So finally, over COVID, one of my friends, Lisa Wright, I'm going to mention her name because she's just a wonderful lady. She goes, hey, Ken, we've got this condo at the beach that we can't use for a week. Do you want to go down there? I'm like, yeah. He said, how much do you want me to give you for it? Oh, no, don't worry about it. We can't get our money back, but you go and just have a good time. Like, well, thank you. I went down there and this is it. I put it all together. Here's the book. It's called Acting Beyond the Script, Acting Tools for Young Actors and Not So Young Actors, with the foreword by Lexi Minetree, who's currently playing Elle Woods on the Legally Blonde series, because she's like, I want to write the foreword for you because you've done so much to help me out. And now, you know, she's working on that series and I can't reach her, but she's having a great time, I'm sure. And yeah, so the book is available for people if they want to get it and read all the stuff that I have stories in the book. I also have the emotional guidance system, like I was telling you, how to use your emotions to express, how to live the life of the character, how to improv, how to break down a script, how to say your lines. You know, it's all the things that you need to know to be an actor. And really, in a nutshell, it's about being present. So you don't have to be an actor to use the tools, because it's not about playing or pretending or being somebody else. It's about being present to what's happening right now and actively listening, allowing yourself to feel something, and then expressing what you're feeling. And these are things that can be done in everyday life, you know, and that's, you know, part of who we are. And the best acting that you see is the one that you when your audience member, you're watching, you can feel it, you know, because there's truth. I call it raw emotion. You know, if you're actually feeling something, if you're watching me and I'm feeling something and I'm really feeling it, you can feel it too. You sense it. And so, like, I'm sure in the movie you saw some feelings going on in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember any examples of feelings that you saw?
Oh, yeah. Well, like you said, it was a romance and it was seductive and it was just even the tonality, you know, when someone was saying something or asking a question to the other, the tonality and the speed and the the cadence and just the way they said it made you feel like, oh, I can feel that. And you're feeling the other person who's basically been put on the spot. They're
Yeah.
trying to figure out how they're going to answer this seductive question that was just asked.
Yeah, that was intentional to make you feel like you're actually in the room and part of the conversation. And that's one of the things I love about doing it in one take, is because it's intimate and you feel like you're actually in the room.
Mhm. Yeah, I did. And, you know, talk about how you did that. Because I remember at the end of the film, you also showed us like an aerial view of the person who had the mic and everything to explain what was happening there, how you were able to shoot that way.
All right. So first of all, I can't tell you, people thought I was crazy to think I could shoot a feature film in 3 days. I'm like, I think I can do this. If I can get my actors where I want them to be. And so I rehearsed with the actors. I got them to understand the dialogue, the emotions, the interaction, the relationship, you know, for every moment. Like, we rehearsed for weeks on Zoom and we go through the lines and the moments and stuff. So pretty much gave all that stuff to them. And then when we got to set, we had a steady cam operator, which was Angelica Perez Castro. She was an amazing director of photography. And then we had Aaron Siegel, who has amazing ears for sound, and Jorge, who was an amazing boom operator. And so they had to act the scene out. So we got to the set. We found this amazing set, and it was still in the 1970s, and we got it all dressed up. And what we had to do, we had to go in and block it and tell the actors, where to go on this line, what we're going to do, how the dance was going to be, and we rehearsed that. And the microphone holder, the boom operator, and the camera operator, they'd be watching the rehearsal, and then we would go down the hall. They would be watching as I was directing the actors, and then now we're gonna rehearse it with the camera. And so we'd have to shoot it, and if the first couple of takes, like the camera person and the sound person would bump into each other, or they bump into the furniture, and they go, okay, no, we got to start over. You get the whole scene, and you get down to the last line, and something happens. You go, oh, I got to go back and shoot the whole thing again. So just getting the dance down between the two actors and the two crew people, trying to figure out where they're going to go, where's she going to go next when the action goes over here, which corner is she going to go to, is she going to come closer, is she going to pull away, how that's going to work together. So we would shoot the rehearsal, and then we'd shoot a take, and we'd shoot a take, we shoot a take until we get the take. Oh, that's the take, we got it. Now we move on to the next scene. We're block and rehearse the next scene. So we pretty much shot it in order. And so that's how it goes. And the more we shot, the easier it got for the crew people to dance around the actors. They knew where they were going to go, what they were going to do, and they were able to do this. And then for the scene in the credits that you saw at the end of the shoot, the director of photography put a GoPro up on the ceiling so she could record it. And so what you see is the dance. You see the actors come in, and you see them go over here, and you see the camera person go behind them, and so you see how they're all moving around together. So that's really, really fascinating.
Well, it was, and when you're talking about the what'd you call it, the boom, where it had the microphone and everything, it was on this really long bar or something, and he was
Yes,
holding on to that the whole time and moving it around and keeping it in the right place. And
that's what a boom operator does. They've got to get it pointed toward the person that's talking. So if you're talking over here, so otherwise they can't hear you. So the actors have microphones in their wardrobes. I can hear them, but sometimes the wardrobe rubs against the microphone, so that sound is not always good. The microphone that the boom operator has usually is the best, but sometimes the microphone's not pointed in the right direction, so you have to figure that out. So visually, the editing for the video didn't take very long. Here's one scene, next scene, next scene, next scene. But the audio editing took a long time because they had to listen to all different tracks and find the best takes. And sometimes you go back to a track a take that we didn't use and pull the audio out of that track and put it in the film because that audio was better for that moment. So that's what editing is. That's what filmmaking is. So this one, the video we did all the editing while we were shooting for the video, and then we had to clean up the audio to make it sound good.
Mhm. And the other thing that you all did that I really thought was creative and really added to the story is, you'd have the scenes, but then in between, you had these Polaroid pictures of different things so you can kind of see what happened next with almost
Right.
without even saying it. There was the picture of the family, there's the picture of this, that, and so that told the story with just the pictures, and using the Polaroids was just like fabulous because anybody in my age group knows about the Polaroids. The
Yeah,
kids
the
don't know
Polaroids.
about
Yeah,
the Polaroids, but
yeah. That was the thing that Lloyd and I came up with, because in the play that Lloyd wrote, he has this. So what happened the year before. In the play, Lloyd has the CPA, Donald, he changes the pictures on the desk so what's going on at home. Well, we can't really do that in the film. We saw some pictures at the beginning of the shot, but this transition of shooting these photographs and then make them look like a scrap album of Polaroid pictures, or pictures from the 70s. So the transition with 70s sounding music, B-side music, and these pictures, you get an idea of what these characters are doing for the year between their last tax preparation and this year's tax preparation, because they see each other once a year. And so now, you kind of caught up on what happened in their life since they last got together. So when they come in together, it's like, oh, here we go again. What's going to happen this year?
Exactly. And I also loved the some symbolism you used when you had the main character, the woman who marries the owner of the shop, and they have a picture of him with just his cowboy hat on, and then later that same little, what do you call it, silhouette of well, he dies and she marries his son, and well, one's got a chef hat, one's got a cowboy hat, and it's just like, what do you call it when you do that, when you pull the scenes out like that?
Well, it's interesting. It's a spoiler alert. So if you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen to this part. But when Belinda goes into telling her stories about how she met and fell in love with her first husband and her second husband, in the play, it's just a monologue talking, and it's like, well, how visually interesting can we make it? And so what happens is she leads them down the hallway, and on the set she turned into this other set that we had dressed up like the diner, you know, and so it's like she's in the diner telling this story. Donald never gets into the diner. He's still in the office, but there's this glass window, and she goes back there, and the lights change, and all of a sudden, her husband is in the scene, and he's naked except for a chef's hat. You see him from the waist up. It's implied that he's naked. He's not really naked, but it feels like he's naked because that's the story of the scene, and it's so funny. It's the way she tells him. She's like, "Well, we always got along well, no matter what we were wearing." And she's so matter of fact about her story, but it takes us someplace. It takes us into like a whole nother world without cutting away. We see her life in this situation, and then she comes back out of that situation. The lights change. She's back in the office. She's coming down the hall. The camera's coming down the hall with her, and she's still telling her story. It's like, but we went on this little journey with her, and the walls disappeared. We went somewhere else for a minute, and we came back, and it's like, I never felt like the camera, didn't cut to someplace else. It's still all one continuous shot, which is amazing. Everybody on this crew made this film. We had an amazing crew, amazing actors, and everybody worked together. And the thing that you don't notice is that we shot this in July in Atlanta, in a very small space without air conditioning, and so everybody was sweating and losing weight while we were filming. And the thing is, the camera, you're talking about the boom operator holding the thing up for like these 20-minute takes. The camera. So we would do a take for 15 minutes and we blow it. We go, okay, set the cameras down. We're going to take a 20-minute break. Let the crew rest so we can go again. Because it is hard work holding that camera, holding that boom for that long a time. So, but these guys are professionals. I mean, they're dedicated professionals, and they were committed to making it work. And the thing is, we worked 10 to 12-hour days. I was adamant we're not going to go overtime. It's not a big budget film. We don't have a lot of money to spend, so I'm gonna be that specific of a director and a producer that says, okay, at 10 hours, we're looking to wrap. If we have to go a little more than 10 hours, we'll go a little more than 10 hours, but we're not going to make anybody work long hours, and I think that makes a very happy crew. They know that, that I'm aware enough that I'm not going to waste time, because that's where your money goes on a film set. You waste time, you waste money. Problems come up, you've got to solve the problems, no matter how. If I'm making an Avengers movie and I'm producing an Avengers movie with millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm still going to have problems to solve. It's not going to be easier. It would be nice to have the budget, but still got to solve the problems.
Yeah. So, so many questions. I don't even know where to start. So let's just start here.
Okay.
Uh, If someone is interested in acting, whether they're 4 or 40 or 80, where do they start? And, I know you have a place where they can learn.
Here's my suggestion for anybody that wants to learn how to act. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. You can start at any age, because film and television, they need people of all ages, sizes, colors, ethnicities, habits, looks. You know, when you watch a movie, nobody looks the same. They don't hire everybody to look like the star. They hire different looking people. And so, you know, before you give anybody any money, this is important. Do your due diligence, because there are more people making money off of actors than actors making money. So, and everybody that's an acting teacher has their hand out waiting for you to give them money. So do your due diligence. Don't just give money to the first person, or if someone recommends, hey, go study with this person. Don't be so quick to give out your money. What you have to do is you got to take a class for free. Sometimes some people call it an audit. I call it an audit. You go and you sit in a class, don't pay them any money. You watch how the teacher teaches. You see if you can connect with their style. Are you learning anything? There are some good teachers out there, and there are also some really bad teachers out there. So, but I'm a big believer in the student finds the teacher. So, if you come into my class, I may be a great teacher for you, or I may not be the right teacher for you. You might not be able to learn by the way that I teach. I teach from a method I call the buffet, meaning I'm just going to give you all kinds of tools. I'm not going to label it as Meisner or Uta Hagen or whatever. I'm not going to give it a label, because there's so many things to think about in acting. You could get lost. I got lost because I wanted to be an actor so bad. I was doing every single little thing my teacher was telling me to do. And I became a really bad actor because I was thinking too much. Probably helped me as a director because I knew a lot of stuff up here. But at some point I had to say, all right, forget all that. Just stay present to what's happening right now. And, and be present to what's happening. People come to my class, they're scared to improv. I don't want to improv. It's so scary. So, well, let me teach you how to improv. Here's the things, and I walk everybody through it in the book. Guideline 1, here's what you do, here's how you make it happen. And then once I teach people how to improv, all you're doing is being present to what's happening right now. You're not thinking about anything. You're just responding to what's in front of you. And it's so simple. And once people know how to do that, they come into class and go, I want to improv. I love improv. Let's do improv. They just love doing it so much because they understand how easy it can be and how much fun it can be. And I've taught some improv classes here in Atlanta for business people. I call it Improv for Fun and Profit, where you're not trying to be funny, but you're trying to be present. And I got a text message today from one of my former adult students. She's, I'm going to a new job, and I'm thanking you for giving me the ability to communicate effectively through your improv class. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. So, like I said, the tools in my book can be used not only just for acting, but they can be used for everyday being present. If you get with your significant other and do acting with your significant other, maybe that could improve, improve communication skills, improve listening skills, improve being comfortable, being uncomfortable, things like that are all things that we all need to learn at some point. Acting class is great for that. But yeah, going back to acting classes, try, but if you never had ice cream before, you would go into the ice cream store and taste different ice creams, so you find one that you liked. So just guys say, oh, make sure you get the Rocky Road. You may not like the Rocky Road. Get the vanilla. You're safe with the vanilla. Well, maybe I want a little something a little not safe. Or maybe I want mint chocolate chip. I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent, but before, and if someone says you can't take this class until you write me a check, then you should walk away from there, because they're probably not going to give you anything what you want. So, I used to charge $3,300 a year for my class, which seems high, but basically, it's 100 hours of class time plus a movie, plus being on set, including the film cost, plus the red carpet, plus the limo was all included. I didn't like nickel and dime everybody along the way. Okay, now you pay for class, now I'll pay for pictures, now pay for this, now pay for this, pay for this. as an actor, I didn't want to be taken advantage of, and so I didn't want anybody to feel like they were being taken advantage by me. And I tell them, if you're giving me money to be your teacher and you're not getting anything out of it, that's called spending money. If you're giving me money and you're getting something out of it that's going to help you in your career, that's called investing in yourself. Like Lexi, she's playing Elle Woods on Legally Blonde. How cool is that? I mean, she was with me for 2 years, 3 years before she went off to college and studied, and she's, booked some other jobs, and, I've got to direct her in 2 or 3 films, and, she's just like, all that time and energy was investment for her to get better. I'm not saying I'm the end all be all of acting coaches, but I'm passing along some knowledge that if you can take it and know how to make it yours and work with it, then you've got something that you can give to somebody else. And if you can teach it, then I know you've got it. But she's taking it and she's improved upon herself over the years. Same with Storm Reid, same with Kyla Drew, same with Madison Thompson, same with Jason Javar. All these actors that have come through that are working actors, they've got stuff to do. I got a text message today from a mother who both her sons train with me, and neither one of them are acting now. But she told me that my son's not acting anymore, but he's been studying math, and he credits you for giving him the confidence to say, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a whole thing. I mean, and then there was another student that I had. His dad is a famous musician, and he was in class one day, and I said, if you live for the approval of others, then you will die from the disapproval of others. And he's at the end of class says, that statement changed my whole life. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's a really, really good statement, because that's the truth. So I've also got 3 degrees in spiritual studies. So sometimes I have I connect it to spiritual stuff because we're all spiritually connected anyway. And if you can weave that in some way, that's grounding as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, when it comes to acting, we always hear about LA and sometimes New York, especially for Broadway. But I know that there's a lot of filming happening here in Atlanta, in Georgia now. So can people actually have a career in Georgia and just stay in Georgia and become a big name, or do you have to go to LA?
Well, the answer to every question in our business is it depends. It depends on what you want out of your career. If you want to be a star like Storm Reid, you kind of have to go to LA. I mean, she trained with me for a year. She was in Santa's Boot Camp, which is the kids' Christmas movie that I made. That was her first film. She went from that to 12 Years a Slave, which won the Oscar for Best Picture. And then she's been on a roll ever since then. And now she's a star, There are actors who have done roles in series here in Atlanta. I wouldn't say that they're stars, but they're working actors. They're making money. There's an actor in town that I know. He's like, I love doing one-liners and day playing. I don't want to hold the whole set. I don't have to think all that stuff. I just want to show up, say my line, get my check, and go home. I got a residual check yesterday for like $115 or something. Like, oh, that's okay. From work that I did 20 years ago. It's nice to get the residual checks. So if you're working on whatever shooting in town, Stranger Things, I've had several students on Stranger Things. Every time Stranger Things airs in reruns, they get a check. Hunger Games shot here. I had a friend that was in Hunger Games, and one time I asked her how much her first residual checks was. She goes, it wasn't that big. It was only like $18,000. Like, what? It's like, that's huge. So if you get to be in one of these big movies coming in town, and it's based on your day rate. Now, if you're a SAG actor, it's like 1,200 and change a day to be, say, a one-liner in a TV show that's union. And then you get that residual check for your whole career. Now, if you work a bunch of days on a show, that adds up, and that adds up over time. You're speaking of the Hunger Games. I had a student named Erica Bierman, who was probably like 10 years old, maybe a little younger, maybe 8 or 9. She auditioned for the Hunger Games Catching Fire when it was in town. and she auditioned for a role called the ring bearer, which had no lines. And I remember coaching her for that audition. She went over and she taped it, and then she got a call saying she booked a role as President Snow's granddaughter. I'm like, oh, okay. So her dad told me this story. You want to hear a story? I'll tell you a good story. Her dad told me the story that Erica went to the set to shoot with Donald Sutherland, and they got there early and they met Donald Sutherland's stand-in, and the stand-in was like, uh, Donald hates working with kids. Yesterday he was working with a kid and the kid dropped something on his foot and injured him. And so when Donald, and by the way, and he says Donald doesn't talk to anybody. Like, I'm a stand-in, he doesn't even talk to me. He just snaps his fingers when he wants me. It's like, okay. So Donald comes in and he sees he's doing a scene with Erica, and he's obviously not happy about it. And they do the first take, and Erica is perfect, and he flubs his line. They do the second take, Erica is perfect, he flubs his line. Do the third take, Erica's perfect, he's perfect. And all of a sudden, his whole demeanor changes, and he's like her best friend. He gives her a rose. He's telling her jokes. He's doing magic tricks for her. It's like, and the stand is like, I don't understand this. She's never like this with anybody, And the director's like, she's great. Let's just film her the rest of the day. That's what her dad was telling me. Then they go to film the next one, Mockingjay, and they fly Erica and her parents to Paris for the filming of that. And Erica, at 10 years old, is walking the red carpet for the Hunger Games series. And I don't know how much money she made, but I'm thinking she made a pretty good amount of money because she's kind of retired now. And I saw recently she was named one of the 10 most beautiful teenagers in acting. Like, oh, okay, well, good for her. So I always say, and I say this in the book. Are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. I say this in the book. There are two things every actor needs to have to work as an actor. Number one, they have to have an opportunity to work as an actor. I mean, they have to have an audition, or they submit themselves, or they know someone's producing, or whatever it is. But then you have to know what to do when you get the opportunity. And so that's what a good teacher will do for you. They'll teach you how to prepare for that. I mean, I'm a big Georgia football fan, and Kirby Smart always says, the moment's never too big if you're prepared. I'm like, I agree with you. If you know how to prepare, auditions should excite you, because auditions are an opportunity to act. And if you love to act, you will love to audition, whether you get the role or not. And you can't think about the role you audition for. I mean, you audition for roles all the time, and you got to let it go. What you have to do is, anytime you get an opportunity to act for somebody, give it your best, because there's nothing. The people on the other side of the table watching your audition, we want you to be good. We want you to be incredible. There's no reason to be scared. Take a chance, do something different. Don't give us a quote nice read. Don't try to do it the way you think it's supposed to be. Take it and bring it to life, and inject something in it that's going to be special, that's for you, that only you can give it. If that makes sense. And so people remember good actors, whether you book it or not. I mean, Alan Hooper's a longtime friend of mine. He was casting on a show called Modern Family, and on Frasier and Ugly Betty, and I mean, a whole bunch of series. He's big in TV comedy. And he told me a story one time, it might be in the book, where he overheard the producers talking, and he said, hey, you remember Carol? Yeah, Carol. Yeah, she's auditioned for us a bunch, but she hasn't booked anything. How about her for this role? Yeah, let's hire her. She didn't even audition, and she booked the role. Mm-hmm. So when you're auditioning and you're not getting it, you could be kept in mind for something else. But you've got to be able to do the work. And how do you do the work? It's like anything else. You've got to learn how to do the work. You got to practice doing the work. If you're going to be a doctor, you're not going to go take a weekend class on how to be a doctor. And
all right. Well, you have had some exciting adventures, directing, acting, famous people now. So that is so exciting. And I know there's people, we're in the Atlanta area, so I know there's people in the Atlanta area who would love to, come to your school and learn or connect with you in some way. I know I connected you with someone that did film festivals in the past. So just so people can connect with you, how do they connect with you? And then tell us about the services you have, where to get your book, where to watch the film, all of that.
All right. So you can connect with me through creativestudiosofAtlanta.com. That's the website. My email is creativestudiosofAtlanta@gmail.com. If you want to get a copy of the book, Acting Beyond the Script, you can get it at publishizer.com. Publishizer, publishizer.com/acting beyond the script. Copies are available there now. There's a limited number of copies available, but you can get those. Also, if you want to see Love and Taxes, we're having a screening in Atlanta at the Strand Theater in Marietta as part of the Cobb International Film Festival. It'll be on Saturday, August the 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Strand Theater. Tickets at cobbfilmfestival.com. It's $15 for an all-day pass. You can see movies all day. You can see our movie at 6 o'clock. Again, we won an award, and we're going to be screening at the Show Low Film Festival in Northwest Arizona in October that your friend Rebecca introduced me to. And let's see, something else. The book, the movie, I guess that's everything. So yes. So thank you so much for having me on. It was quite an honor. And if you have any other questions, you guys can email me. I'm available to get on Zoom and teach classes or do guest lecturing or that kind of thing. And we've got other movies that we want to make in the future. So if, I call my studio a studio for nonviolent film. So all of my movies are nonviolent or family friendly or things like that. We're faith-based. But yeah, those are the kinds of movies that I want to make. I think there's too many violent movies out there. They get more and more violent all the time. I can't watch them. I can't make them. And so, those are the kinds of movies that I want to make. And if you want to help us make a movie, call me. We'll make a movie together.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. So now I have a personal question for you.
Okay.
What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
My daughters. I'm a girl dad, and I'm guilty of spoiling them. And nothing is more joyous than getting a hug or a snuggle. I mean, they're teenagers now, so snuggles are fewer and far between, but I got one last night with both of them, and that was just heaven on earth. And they only got a few more years of high school till they're gone, and then I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, my whole life changed the moment I heard someone yell, "Daddy!" That changed my whole life. And so now they're, my job is to raise them the best that I can and be the best person they can be. And, that's the most joyous. That's my best production yet.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for telling us your stories, adventures. It's been fun.
Thank you. It's been a joy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I have one last question. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
That's a really good question. For me, it's just finding joy right now, being present to what's happening in front of you, being where your feet are. Because when you think about the past or you think about the future, you're in your head and you're not here. So how can you be here? How can you find joy? I mean, if I have a roof over my head, I have food in my house, how can I not be joyous? My kids are safe. I'm here another day. Just being present to this moment. I've been guilty of missing moments of my daughter's lives just because I've been thinking about how am I going to pay a bill, or thinking about how am I going to fill this class, or how am I going to make this movie. And if I just stop for a minute, I mean, those things happened anyway. If I just stop for a minute and just watch my daughter, whatever she's doing, or watch my dog, whatever he's doing, I get so much joy out of just seeing that. So yeah, that would be my advice, is being present to what's happening. And I'm gonna plug the book here, but you plug the book, there's some tools in there to teach you how to be present to what's happening right now.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was a joy to talk to you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Bye. Bye, everybody.